Here we are on page 8 of functions, last page. On this page, we're going to learn how to use the PolySMLT app to solve systems of equations, which you've been doing systems equations for a long time, but in this case, we are going to do all the heavy lifting with the calculator. Okay, so first problem. Uh, we are going to set up two equations and two unknowns, which you remember two equations and two unknowns? It looks kind of like this. 2x plus 4y equals 7. 7x plus 2y equals 3. And then if you have two equations with two unknowns like that, you may use algebra, substitution, or elimination to find the value of either x or y, and then you substitute back that in, and then you end up getting the other one. But with PolySMLT, all you need to do is put in some strategic numbers, which are the coefficients here. If you put in these 6 numbers into PolySMLT, it calculates what x and y are going to be. Okay, all you need to do is arrange your equations in this form, and then you'll be able to just pick out the coefficients that are marked in red here and put them into the calculator. Okay, so we're going to do that. We're going to set it up, and then we're going to put it in the calculator. To make a sponge cake, you need 80 grams of flour and 50 grams of fat. To make a fruit cake, you need 60 grams of flour and 90 grams of fat. Okay, so the amount of flour, find a model for the amount of flour needed to make both cakes. Okay, so let's use S for sponge cake, number of sponge cakes, and we use F for the number of fruit cakes. The amount of flour needed to make both cakes is, let's see, flour is equal to sponge cake times 80 plus fruit cake times 60. Okay. And then it says the amount of fat needed to make both cakes. Fat is equal to sponge cake times 50 plus fruit cake times 90. Okay. Peter has 820 grams of flour and 880 grams of fat. How many types of each cake can he make? Okay, so we can write the first equation as 80s plus 60f. We're just reversing the order of the multiplication to make it more like algebra equations normally are written. Instead of FL, we're going to put the amount of flour. And then for the second equation, we're going to put 880 grams instead of FT. We have 50s plus 90f is equal to 880. Okay, and then it says how many of each type of cake can he make. Now, this normally is a lot of algebra here, but we're just going to take 80, 50, 60, 90, 820, and 880, and we're going to put it in the calculator. Go into Apps. You should have PolySMLT. Press any key, it says. And then we're going to go to Simultaneous Equation Solver. And we have two equations and we have two unknowns. So we're going to leave that as 2, 2. That's exactly how it starts. And then we press next here, just like a bank machine. And then we're going to put in 80, 50, 60, 90. So 80, 50, 60, 90, 820, 880, and then we just press solve, and it tells us that x1 is 5 and x2 is 7. Now what does x1 and x2 mean? Well, x1 is the first variable and x2 is the second variable, which means that x1 is s and x2 is f. So we have 5 and 7. So that means the number of sponge cakes is 5 and the number of fruit cakes is 7. Okay? So all the difficult part of that, which is all the algebra, is done very easily. And then the most challenging part becomes just making the equations. So it takes 8 hours to make a table, and it takes 3 hours to make a chair. For a table, the wood costs $100. For a chair, the wood costs $30. So let's use the variables t and c for the number of tables and number of chairs. A carpenter has 51 hours and $570. How many tables and chairs can she make? So we're going to put, for time, we have 51 hours, and we have, I'm just going to write time for now. Time is equal to 8 hours times the number of tables plus 3 hours times chairs, and he has a total of 51, right? And for cost, we have $100 for a table and $30 for a chair, and we have a total of $570. Okay, so now we're just going to put in these numbers into PolySMLT, and to go back we just press main, start over, simultaneous equation solver, 2 equations, 2 unknowns. In math studies we always do 2 equations, 2 unknowns, and so we're going to put 8, 100, and we put 3 and 30, and we put 51, 570. Solve, and we have x1 is 3 and x2 is 9. Okay, so t is 3, so tables, we can make 3 tables, and number of chairs is going to be 9. Okay? Okay. Number 3. A van carries up to 3 people and 7 cases. A car carries up to 5 people and 3 cases. How many vans and cars do you need for 59 people and 70 cases? Okay, so when it says how many vans and cars, you already know that the variables you're going to need are V and C, right? So let's see, people equals 3 times van plus 5 times car. Cases equals 7 times van plus 3 times car. And the number of people total is 59, and the number of cases total is 70. And now we're just going to put these numbers into PolySMLT, into simultaneous equation solver. 2 equations, 2 unknowns as usual. We can put 3, 7, 5, 3, and we'll put 59 and 70. Solve. The solution that the calculator gives, did you see how they were fractions? So actually the first variable, which is the van variable, is 173 divided by 26, which is 6.65. Oops. 6.65 for V. And C is going to be 303 divided by 26, which is 7.81. So the number of vans we need is actually 7 vans. And the number of cars we need is actually 8 cars because we have to round up, right? You can't have 7.81 cars. You have to have 8 cars. Okay, and you can't, even if it was like 7.2, you can't round it down because we need that 0.2 cars. So you need to round these numbers up. Whenever you get a math studies problem where the answer should be in a whole number and you get a decimal or a fraction, you need to figure out whether you're going to round down or round up, whichever makes more sense, right? Number 4, a passenger plane carries 80 passengers and 10 tons of supplies. A transport plane carries 50 and 25. How many planes of each type do you need to carry 620 people and 190 tons of supplies? So since it says how many planes of each type, we know that one of the variables is going to be passenger planes, the other one's going to be transport planes. Okay, so number of passengers is equal to 80 times P plus 50 times T. The number of supplies is equal to 10 times P plus 25 times T. And the number of passengers total that we need to carry is 620. And the number of supplies we need to take is 190 tons. So now we know that we just need to put in these numbers into poly-SMLT. So we could put it in the simultaneous equation solver, 2 equations, 2 unknowns, and we're going to put in 80 and 10, 80 and 10, and then here we're going to put 50 and 25, 50 and 25. And here we're going to put 620 and 190. Whoops, not 10, 190. Okay, and then we solve, and we get 4 and 6. So number of passenger planes is 4. Number of transport planes is 6. Okay, last one. A school math department has €1440 to buy textbooks. Math for All Volume 1 costs 70. Math for All Volume 2 costs 40. Department wants twice as many copies of Volume 1 as 2. Okay, Volume 1. How many of each volume can they buy? So we're going to have one variable, which is Volume 1, and the other variable is Volume 2. So we'll call them V1 and V2. So we have €1440 to buy textbooks. And so Volume 1 costs 70. And Volume 2 costs 40. And we want the price to add up to $14.40. And then, but the department wants twice as many copies of Volume 1 as Volume 2. So I have a lot of trouble with this type of sentence, so I'm going to just write an example. So they want twice as many copies of Volume 1 as Volume 2. So if I had 10 copies of Volume 1, does that mean I want 5 copies of Volume 2 or 20? I think it's 5, right? Okay, so like twice as many copies of Volume 1 as Volume 2. So Volume 2 has 5, so Volume 1 should be double. Okay, yeah, that's right. So the equation I'm going to write is Volume 1 is equal to 2 times Volume 2. Okay, that's the equation I get from looking at that sentence. Okay, and now it looks like this equation doesn't really belong with that other kind of equation, but if we just arrange it so that V1 and V2 are on the same side, we're going to subtract 2V2 from both sides, then we're going to have V1 minus 2V2 equals 0. And now it kind of looks like it's supposed to. We're going to put V1, which is actually 1V1, minus 2V2 is equal to 0. And we can still put this into poly-SMLT, and it can still figure out the answer for us. Okay, so we'll put simultaneous equation solver. Next, and we're going to put 70 and 1. Oops, next. 70 and 1. And then we'll go up here and we'll put 40 and negative 2. Negative 2. And then it's going to be 14, 40, and 0 here. And then we solve. And so for volume 1, we're going to get 16. And for volume 2, we're going to get 8. Okay? Volume 1, 16. Volume 2, get 8. All right? And that's it for this last page 8.